much. And for our next session, we have our sponsors, Microsoft, to thank.
Thank you.
It is Microsoft. So we are at the Unicorns Founders Roundtable, where we are looking at how AI can be used for responsible innovation and building consumer trust. On this panel, we have a whole bunch of fantastic CTOs. They are the ones who are building, literally building for India. Saurabh, Mohammed, we have Gaurav, Thejasvi. And to lead this session, may I please invite on stage Kapil Sharma, who's the Senior Director and Head of Digital Natives for Microsoft India. Thank you guys. Do we have our panelists? Thank you so much. And I like how we're saying we're going to use AI for responsible innovation, right? So how do you actually begin to trust an algorithm? I think that's a big one that we're going to try and get an answer to.
Okay, are we on? Okay. Well, thanks for staying back for this exciting session. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the topic itself, I think it'd be great if we could take a couple of minutes for each of the panelists to introduce themselves and what are they helping build for the organizations. That'd be great. So I'll start with Teja, if you could go ahead, please.
Good evening, everybody. Thejasvi Bhat, CTO at Blackbuck. Blackbuck is India's, I would say, largest trucking company. We solve for fleet owners in India, the small and medium fleet owners. We have multiple products which serve their needs. One of the points to note, we are India's biggest FASTag player in terms of the overall transaction doing on the platform. We provide them with marketplace, and we also provide them telematic solutions.
Thanks, Teja. So.
First of all, thanks for inviting me. Good evening, everyone. Saurabh Kishore, I'm the CTO for Dealshare. Not sure how many people know about Dealshare, but Dealshare is an online e-commerce company. We sell grocery online. I think the difference between Dealshare and many other companies who have been around is that we are trying to solve the problem of the tier 2, tier 3 markets, right? So a lot of companies, the e-commerce companies today address the needs of the tier 1 markets slightly more, I would say, affluent class or slightly middle to upper middle class kind of customers. The business models are built around it. But the tier 2, tier 3 markets, and even the tier 2, tier 3 customers from the economic strata standpoint, I think that's a very underserved market today. So Dealshare focuses on those markets. We have presence in Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Kolkata, even in NCR. But I think our use cases, our business model is built around, as I said, middle class to slightly low middle class kind of an income group, right? So that's what we are busy building. It has its own challenges, it has its own nuances that we try to deal with every day, whether it's around the delivery models, whether it's around identifying the locations, the addresses in these cities, or even the kind of assortments, the price points, that you have to sell in these markets, right? So that's what Dealshare is doing, and that's what keeps us busy.
Thank you. Gaurav.
Thanks, Kapil. So good to be here. Gaurav Bhalotia. I am the CTO at Udaan. Udaan is a B2B e-commerce platform. So we are present in 1,200 cities, 12,000 plus pin codes. We provide basically service kirana stores, right, which are the backbone of commerce in the country. Our promise is next day delivery across a range of categories. Starting from food to pharma and discretionary categories. Next day delivery across all of these pin codes, right? And we use technology extensively, right? So a lot of capabilities of retailer to get them, get these kirana stores, the promise of get them the best products at best prices, right? Next day, right? So that's what we do.
Hi guys. My name is Mohammed Ehtisham. I'm the CTO of Ninjacart. Ninjacart is an agri-tech company. And what we do is we support the whole agri value chain, starting from farmers to traders, to wholesalers, retailers, importers, exporters, as well as enterprise. So we cover all the whole of agri value chain, and we provide marketplace as a solution for both capital and commerce, fundamentally, right? So we have solutions where we have fintech part of the arm which provides capital solutions, and the commerce part of the arm which solves all the buy-sell problems between consumers.
Thank you. And I was just realizing we have a great mix of panelists today, right from agri-tech to B2B2C to really reaching out to the tier 2 and tier 3, and of course, as Teja said, in the background, bringing it all together through the logistics capability. So looking forward to a great conversation, and I'd like to kick off with the most obvious question that I had, which was, when we talk about generative AI or AI, I think we need to go back beyond the recent interest that everyone has around GPT. So I wanted to go back to the genesis of this in your respective organizations, because Gen AI, or rather I'll call AI ML, has been something that you've been infusing in your products and in your business models for a long period of time. So we'll start with understanding what that journey has been like. What have you been experimenting, building and solving with AI ML? And more recently with Gen AI, what have been some of the use cases that you have been looking at to solve for your customers? And hopefully that will give the audiences a sense of how Gen AI and AI ML is really solving for the organizations on the panel today. So starting with you, Teja.
Yeah. AI, I think we have been across India, across all startups, we have been taking this journey for the last 5-6 years, and every company has an AI ML wing solving one or the other problems. At Blackbuck, our journey started 3.5 years back when we launched our marketplace. Our model of marketplace is, I'll take a couple of minutes to understand, tell you what's the marketplace or in the logistics industry, especially in the trucking segment. We deal with long haul logistics, people who wants to move their goods from city to city, not the intra-city, the city to city logistics. So this is a highly fragmented industry today in India, and Blackbuck is trying to solve it. It's a long journey. And as part of it, we acquire our customers mostly through other assets, through fast tag acquisitions, and people choose Blackbuck for their telematics devices like GPS. And their core business is basically moving goods. If I have a truck, if I own a truck or two, I'm a small fleet owner. 80% of India is small fleet owners. So people have one truck. And large fleet owners, if I say more than 20 trucks, would be 10% of India, well, less than 10% of India. So they primarily their livelihood depends on making sure their truck runs at least 25 days in a month, right? Which basically means if I take an average journey in a long haul from a city to city is 5 to 6 days, then it is important for them to take a return journey. If they miss the return journey by 3-4 days, their EMI they will not be able to. So they come to our marketplace to make sure they get the loads, right? They put the destination like how you book a cab. They come to our app and basically put the source and the destination location, and they find the relevant loads for them, right? We have one more app with which there is other side of the ecosystem, the demand ecosystem puts loads who actually wants trucks. Now, the journey started with how do you do matching with it? Like any recommendation engine. Back in Swiggy days, for me, recommendation engine started with the listing of restaurants, right? Here, it's a listing of relevant loads for that particular trucker. So, because in India, if you see, go to a junction of Nice Road, you will see a different variety of trucks, right? The number of truck types, number of locations, the semanticity within it, it's saying that person who is taking a load from, let's say, Bangalore to Chennai, he would also be open to take a load from, let's say, Hosur to Chennai, or a place near, let's say, even to, let's say, Hosur to Pondicherry, for example, right? So you cannot do every of these decisions through distance-based calculation. You have to bring in some form of semantic model to it, then bring in right set of relevance model to it. So we started with an LTR model to begin with, 6-7 versions of it on the LTR model. Obviously, we use some of the models which are inbuilt in, let's say, your address ecosystems. But our homegrown system started with the recommendation model. And coming to your second part of the questions on the generative AI, in the last, probably after the OpenAI launch, we all got interested, tried to adopt generative AI across our businesses. I wouldn't say that today we are using that in any form of a business today, but there are definitely we are using it internally to be able to analyze the data. For example, one of the data analysis which we do today is look at the customer voices and figure out what are the sentimental analysis out of it. And provide him with right set of suggestions through a summary API, through an OpenAI and things like that. So I think I would rather say we're looking forward to how we are going to adopt it. Obviously for developers, we have started using Copilot and you would know all of those have started. But from a pure value position for the end consumer, journey has just begun.
Super, thanks Tej. So,
yeah. So I think we use AI for all the pretty standard stuff for any e-commerce company that would use it for personalization, segmentation, recommendation, all of these things, right? I think certain nuances that change for us, as I said, the demographics, the customer target group that we have, which may be a slightly different, for which I would say in many ways, a lot of work that we're doing is a little unique, or maybe not many companies have done so far, right? I mean, for the large cities, for the tier 1 cities, for the metros and all, a lot of models already exist which can be leveraged, right? For us, it feels like for the tier 2, tier 3 market, for that kind of a demographics, a lot of things that we have to figure out through data, right? Including their behavioral patterns, their buying patterns and all of that, right? So a lot of focus is around that, how do we kind of sharpen that and how do we, as much as possible, get it right? So that's one. The second challenge that we face, again, we try to capture the data more around the addresses, right? Because the addresses are very unstructured in these cities, right? It's like next to the tree, opposite to the temple, and they are not very numbered or, so a lot of times we try to capture the lat long when our delivery boys are there, we try to capture the lat long and we try to maintain that database and how smartly the next time when somebody orders within that area or the same customer orders, our speed of delivery improves, right? So we've kind of promised the next day delivery for the assortment that we offer, right? The third thing that we do is, as the name suggests, deal share. We also focus on the value that we offer to the customer, the price points that we offer to the customer, right? So a lot of focus, we are also susceptible to a bit of an abuse and fraud there as well, because certain products we sell at, let's say, 1 rupee. Certain products we sell at 9 rupee, like we are very famous for 9 rupee sugar. So whenever you get to our site, you will find sugar for 9 rupee per kg. There are certain bundle deals which if you buy for X amount, you get it for 1 rupee. So that creates a little bit of a problem around certain unwanted customers who might place multiple orders in bulk. We have seen some businesses also try to, place orders. So a lot of focus is around how do we do the abuse and the fraud detection. And the more you solve those use cases, these are smart guys, they figure out the way to kind of crack it, right? So that I would say a lot of data, the AI, ML concepts, the data science concepts we're leveraging in terms of sharpening those things. Now, when it comes to, I think as they just said, we're definitely using the tools like Copilot and stuff. One of the use cases that we are currently working on, we have some of the legacy code which probably doesn't have a pretty good unit test coverage and all, right? So we thought, okay, why not use this to write some of the unit test cases so that we can get quickly a unit test coverage right, So a lot of those things we're experimenting with, definitely on the customer support side, the chatbots that we're using, they're all Gen AI enabled these days, or rather they're in the early stages. I think a lot of products claim to be there. So we are evaluating, we're exploring those things, that how we can do certain implementations and get it right. But I would say one of the things also, if you want to get that right, is your data backbone has to be very good, right? So a lot of focus around getting a data cleaned up, making sure that whatever the output comes out of these models, the quality of that is good, right? So a lot of focus is around getting a data cleaned up, data right, So I would say these are the areas that we are
I think in your business is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that data has to have the purity, otherwise the models are not going to really give you anything meaningful for your customers. I think for the audiences here, I know both of you called out GitHub and Copilot. I wanted to just do a bit of scene setting and level setting what Copilot is and GitHub is. A lot of audiences may not know about it. So one of the, if you have developers in your organization today, one of your big challenges is developer productivity. How do you maximize your most important assets in the organization, which are the developers, to do more? Now, of course, you have your smartest developers who probably can solve much more complex problems, but they are being always bogged down with the mundane tasks. So GitHub is another, it's a product which helps you to really take large parts of your mundane code and kind of automate that through the Copilot, right? And that's one of the Microsoft product that both Tej and Saurabh are mentioning here. We'll come back to questions at the end, sir, please. But I just wanted to make sure that people knew what Copilot was before we just went on. So I'll ask Gaurav the same question. At Udaan, there's a lot of innovation happening for many, many years. So I'd love to hear from you on that.
Sure. So we are also a commerce play, right? So a lot of things which Saurabh mentioned, right, are applicable. I would say data, ML, AI, right, is very, very pervasive, right, throughout the stack, right? You can see like we are a platform, right, providing a bunch of things. I'll say ki first and foremost, data, ML, AI comes in to deliver the CVP to our customer, okay? So CVP, right, is price, availability and selection, right? So for each pin code, what products are going to sell, right? What is going to be the demand, right, from the Kirana stores? To be able to do next day delivery, right, I need this inventory, right? Not just at location, right? So it is not like inventory at location. We have a concept of inventory in motion now, right? So we are moving it so fast, right? You order at 10 o'clock at night and morning 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock delivery can be possible, right? So this is inventory in motion. So how do you plan ahead? A lot of planning, right, is using ML, right, data, AI, right? So first is availability, then price, right? Again, different locations, how do you get the right prices, right? So prices, you want to make sure that you are able to price it based on your cost, right? And also based on competition, both offline and online, right? So how do you figure out what is the best price you can offer to the consumer, right? Which is fair price, but you still are able to pocket in margin. So price is another one. And for service, right? So how do we actually lay out our networks, right? What are the different anchor warehouses? What are the forward warehouses? How do you connect these, right? How many trucks do you actually move between 2 points, right? Depending on the load you are seeing, right? Just so that you can ensure you getting the right balance of what the service levels you need to promise and the cost you are incurring, right? I could actually be running trucks whole day, right, between two locations, right? But I want to run minimum number of trucks which give me that service level. So CVP is one, right? Again, Udaan is a company which, I don't know if you guys have heard of this concept of wild web, right? www wild web hai. When you are on the web, anything can happen, right? So you are exposed, right? You are at the mercy of so many things. Similarly, I think we are like a company playing in Bharat, right? So Saurabh did mention about fraud, right? So suppose I'm launching an affiliate referral program, for example, right? Time and again we have seen, right? As soon as you launch a referral program, people find up to like 20, 30 phones, right? Devices, right? SIM cards, right? To come and create accounts, get that benefit, right? New signups, right? So the bar is high, right? Anything we do, any new feature, any new product, right? So we have a very, very powerful, right? A fraud and abuse engine, right? Which can go across multiple such use cases. So deliveries when we are doing, right? So delivery boys, right? Again, like things depend so much on incentives, right? You can see fake RTOs, right? It has not been delivered, it has been marked as returned, right? Or there might be collusion between parties, right? So in terms of product which was delivered, we didn't get a product or we got damaged product. So a lot of fraud and abuse, I think, is a backbone, right, of how we are able to drive this value to our users, build that trust, right? We like to trust our users, right? And fraud and abuse is an important pillar, right, on which we are doing. And again, like onboarding folks, like address is one, right? I think Saurabh did mention about that. How do we validate addresses? How do we validate locations, right? To ensure ki you can reach the right place in optimal time, right? So like I said, so AI, ML, right, runs the business. Gen AI, to Kapil's next question, right? So I would say honestly we are exploring, right? So it's a powerful technology. Bunch of products I actually have inside, right? For example, I'll not talk about GitHub Copilot. We are exploring, we have engineers figuring out if it can help write boilerplate code at least, right? So there is a team which has built out Gen AI interface for doing analytics, right? So mixed panel kind of a tool, right? Can you write natural language queries, right? Tell me how much time did users spend on the app yesterday, right, on an average, right? Or tell me which was the day which saw maximum footfalls on the app, right? So you can actually just write these queries, right? So we have a tool which uses things you might have heard of, LangChain, and to do prompt engineering, goes in, figures out, creates a Druid query or a mixed panel query, pulls it out. So things like that, to a lot of, I would say, places where we are, what I say, humanizing our interfaces, right? So we have so many touch points with our users, right? So I believe that Gen AI, right, is finally giving us this capability in the AI, where our AI can actually understand humans, right? Interpret how they are saying, and are also able to conversate in the same language, right? So we are actually trying to see if we can humanize, right? So bots on customer support, right? It used to be an IVR. Can we create a more powerful, like a bot interface which understands, can conversate in natural language, maybe do like some first call resolutions before sending it to agents, right? A lot of analysis of our call center data, right, to figure out summaries, what is going on, mood, sentiment, where are we actually closing, resolving it well, where are we not, right, to some like very experimental things around, we're trying to add a voice interface to our app, right, voice interface where you can actually, again, speak a command to get the right products, right. So these Kirana stores, right, again, like if you see, they are very, very busy, right, during the day they are very, very busy. So a voice interface or something which allows them to quickly check prices, right? And they have a bunch of these players, distributor ka truck that comes in, right? Says ki, what do you want today? He'll say ki, what is the price of dal, right? You are offering me, right? And they would want to quickly open an app and check ki, what is the price on Udaan or some other competitor, right? So I see there are a lot of powerful use cases, but we are still exploring, right? We will figure out, right, ki when it is ready. And I guess we talk about the readiness factor.
And I think great point, given that we're talking about commerce, agri-tech here. India is a unique country where language plays a very critical role, which means, to your point, a Kirana shop owner in Punjab may want to use a Punjabi as a language to interact with the app. So one of the things that AI solves for through using a voice is being able to converse in multiple regional languages. So I think that will be a game changer, especially if we are trying to target across tier 2, 3, 4 cities. So that's another use case that I think AI can solve for.
Yeah. Especially English is a big one, right?
Yeah,
if you
totally.
see India, right? English is a big one, and like even for our use case, to Kapil's point, right? The same dal, right, can be called different things. It's called arhar somewhere, tuar somewhere else. The brands of basmati rice, right? People address them differently, right? So being able to, again, that's part of humanization, localization, right? Even images, right? So there are things which you can do with multimodal
LLMs, yeah.
LLMs.
Super, thank you. Mohammed?
I think with Ninjacart from the past 3.5, 4 years, there is a decent evolution that has happened. As the evolution with respect to AI is happening, I think we have also evolved in that zone. So largely, I think whatever my colleagues effectively covered, we also do a lot of supply chain optimizations. I largely put this AI solutions into something, you treat one as a cost optimization problems, right? and then you have productivity optimizations, then you have the growth optimizations. Largely, if you just think about it from a customer value point of view, what all AI things that we are trying to do, what are the optimizations at the cost optimization, which is pricing optimization or route optimization problems, right? So initially, when we actually started, we do all these things, and this was a time where it was like classical ML. All these are largely regression-based stuff that was there, and we did that, right? Now, in productivity and in Ninjacart, always what we try to do is, at least I try to make sure that we have a lot of problems. We take problems and then go look for solutions. Otherwise, mostly what happens is, which I really hate when somebody tells me that you take a solution and then try to figure out a problem for that, right? But given the space that we actually work with, there are a lot of problems that we have to deal. For example, a simple problem that we faced is with respect to the on-field guys for attendance, right? There is a lot of fraud happens when you are running such a huge operation set. When you are running 1,000 ton every day kind of a load through the warehouses, the kind of the number of employees that participate in this whole gameplay is crazy, and the amount of fraud that happens is crazy level. This is the first time where we said, okay, how to avoid this, and then we said probably face recognition in a real-time fashion as attendance is the solution for it, and we implemented this. It worked. It gave us a very high value, and people go to an extent. To just give an example, if you just do a simple facial recognition, they will just show the video and then they will get by with it. That's the level of things that happen, and then you have to be a lot more innovative. That then you say that you dynamically create behaviors that can be changed every day so that those guys cannot record it, and we have done that with facial recognition, right? So this is a time where we just started from just classical ML to a little bit next level of ML usage. Then the next problem we hit, which according to me is a very fundamental problem. I think the kind of stuff that we are doing there is very innovative. Is this SKU quality? When you talk about F&B, the kind of variations of SKUs that exist and how you establish quality is a very, very hard problem. And this is when we entered into computer vision, the deep learning gameplay, right? And from the past 1.5 to 2 years, we have been working on this, and we have trained our models to a very large extent with more than a million and couple of million annotated images that we have done, where we are able to identify based on the color. Largely in a SKU, you find a color, texture, and size are very important in establishing the quality, right? And we have done models based on that where we can establish a quality analysis on a decent amount of SKUs that we deal with, right? Now, very lately, once we did this, a very interesting problem came in. We serve all the personas of the agri value chain, farmers, retailers, as I was explaining, right? Now with our retailers in India, if you particularly consider for India, this is one of the largest problems, which ONDC, I hope most of you are aware what ONDC is. ONDC is like, they are democratizing commerce in India, right? So the whole retailer footprint is a very base for that to happen. The core Kirana stores, what we refer to as. The biggest problem in digitizing Kirana stores is cataloging. There's nothing else. Actually, the fundamental problem of digitizing our Kirana stores at the very smallest level is cataloging the stores and knowing the inventory for availability, right? And from the past 1.5 years, we have worked on a solution which effectively using computer vision on their mobile phones, they just actually record a video and it catalogs the whole store for them. And this is the kind of deep learning level that we are working with. We are closely working with ONDC. In a few weeks, we are going to launch this solution, which will help catalog, for the Kirana stores, right? So this is the deep learning phase, and this is where we are at now. I think where most of the technology is going, and we are a lot more confident with all these solutions. Now is where we are thinking is there are challenges still where we are facing, which is where we are probably trying to look at Gen AI, but I think this is too early to say anything about Gen AI. I'm not confident at this point. Probably, let's say, a year down the line, we might be a little bit more confident. But there are certain places where I will be a lot more confident is using these models and then building over that a conversational ecosystem, which I feel is probably a more straightforward acceptance. For example, some of the tricks that we are trying both on customer value and on the front of productivity is with Gen AI is we have built this deep learning ecosystem where cataloging everything is getting built. Now we're just saying, okay, cataloging is built. Now the availability of the catalog, can it be a Gen AI conversation? Can the Kirana store guy say, once I have built the catalog for him, can he just say, once it's digitized and available for somebody to order, can he just say, in an Alexa kind of a fashion, Apple is not available, or Apple availability is done, right? This is the kind of a conversation that we want to build. That's what we are actually going ahead at. And I largely believe, I think this leg, I feel that I have a lot of confidence where, because there is a solid foundation of a deep learning model already built, and I know to a certain extent we are there. We can overlay some of these particular things. There is something at the productivity level that we are actually doing for the employees, which I'm just trying it out, is we are just loading all the data that we have collected within our ecosystem as a knowledge base, which is the whole meta of our data, the RCA solutions, our documentation that is effectively stored in Confluent, all these things, and we are loading the modules, right? And whenever there is a problem that happens in production, now the guys have built something which is very early phases where we're just going and telling this is the problem that is actually happening on production. What can I do about it? Now there are instances where they are very nice results we have seen where a developer who is unaware of what has happened, he's able to get all the data and then move forward. And then there are hallucinations also, but I think that's why I'm saying these are something very early phase, but I'm seeing a lot of value in that direction where I have a knowledge which I already had built and my search was able to do a better job. Now with all these Gen AI things, I'm trying to overlay and then see through a conversational model, can I, make it more better, right? So I think Gen AI is still too early. As I said, it's too early. I think allow us to play it for a few years, or probably at least a year. I think then we'll have more specific and concrete ways of telling what exactly is going on.
No, I think what was interesting is that a lot of AI ML innovation has already been happening in your organizations. You've built a foundation which is fairly mature and you trust it to a degree because you've been using it. I think what GPT which is a large learning model does is accelerate some of those use cases like NLP based natural conversation that a Kirana store can have, which was not possible, or to your point earlier, can we just kind of make it as a front end to what you have already got in terms of your metadata search and everything. I can just ask a very simple question to that and it will give me the exact answer. So I think it's a good start. Low hanging fruits probably solves faster and then build upon it. But I think that kind of takes us into the heart of the topic today, which is responsible AI. As you as technology leaders build these solutions, both for your organizations, internal use cases, but also externally for your customers, one of the things that comes up is how do you build trust with your external and internal parties around the data that is being used to train the models, the data sovereignty around it, right? And also making sure that as you innovate faster, you are also creating the safeguards that are required to make sure that this is going to be used in the best possible manner to the trust of your customers. So just if you can touch upon that, that'd be great. Tej, if you want to go first.
Yep. There are two distinct aspects to that question, if I am here correctly, right? One, data security and data compliance for an internal customer and from an external customer. So I would start from an external customer because that's where you guys have talked about humanization, localization, a lot of aspects, right? I understand everything is coming from the concept of basically, will I, by using generative AI or AI as a concept, am I achieving customer satisfactory for the 99th percentile too? Or am I creating an entity where where I have empathy towards customer. One of the examples which you talked about using in call center use cases, right? I can obviously build a voice flow based a generative AI where an AI bot is talking to the customer, but is that going into an endless loop? Is there a resolution which he wanted? Is he be able to getting it on the same call? Because understand that one, for Blackbuck's use case, we are dealing with customers who are from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where even the structured information communicated by the AI would not be sufficient for it. Is there a right CSAT measurement? Are you taking it for the customer to fine tune it better? I think that's point number one. Using it responsibly. And second one is making sure all this data are not infringing on the PII data of a customer, right? Because he talks about his financial transactions, he talks about where he's from, he talks about his location. A lot of this data cannot be reused across other user databases. So Saurabh also touched upon massaging the data, make sure data is clean. So how are we actually keeping the data at storage which is clean, which is PII guarded, compliant? I think that becomes very important. From an internal customer, I have a little different opinion. For example, we need a collective innovation to be able to achieve the productivity which you are talking about. For example, a code, how much of code can you actually give it back to, let's say, GitHub for that matter, right? GitHub has our data. How much of data GitHub is trained on the same code base to give suggestions to other users? I think we should be a little relaxed on it, because collectively it will help us unless you are dealing with a very secure
proprietary
code data. Otherwise you should be able to finding a date range between two numbers. I think you can put that data. I don't think that's an issue. That's how I would like to put it.
Thanks for that. Saurabh?
So I think Tejas pretty much covered a lot of things that lots of us do it anyways, right? So definitely we need to, I think the most important thing for any organization, especially in these times, when the awareness about these things on the customer side is also very high, right? Because everybody knows that a lot of data gets used, and especially the generative AI, I think it has made AI more mainstream. Because earlier people had heard the name AI ML and they thought it's more of a fancy stuff, but I think generative AI has made it very, very common. Everyone on the street or everybody has heard it. Maybe a lot of people have played around it. I think it has made it really, really mainstream. And people have started relating to it. So what happens is the awareness is very high in a common customer, in a common man, right? So I think the more we can build that trust, because now people are aware that, okay, data is getting utilized and it is picking up data from all over the place and still, kind of using all those models to kind of give me a relevant information. So people are definitely, the good side of it is that there's a lot more appreciation of it. The other side to it is, it also creates a lot of questions in people's mind, how's data getting utilized and stuff like that, right? So one, I think, the more we are transparent with the customers, right, the more trust we can build with them. Like we have to ask for, their permissions. We shouldn't use the data without any permissions, the opt-ins and stuff like that, right? Of course, we need to keep the data secure, we need to keep the data anonymous, we need to sensitize the data wherever we're using it. All those, I would say, the basic practices, right? Which I'm sure most of us must be using in any case. But I would say the trust factor, the transparency factor, because of the high awareness on the customer side, I think has become more critical right now than probably ever before, right? So a lot of focus is around that. I know with the GDPR and all of those regulatory stuff, the government is also trying to regulate it. They're trying to put very stiff penalty on the misuse of the data or the usage of the data. I'm sure that will also drive a lot of right behaviors on the part of the companies, not to misuse the data or not to kind of use it for the use cases it is not meant for, or rather, distribute or share the data. So I would say a lot of focus around that. If nothing else, a lot of regulations will force all of us to do a lot of things around it, right? So that's, I would say, on the customer side. I would say the same thing applies largely to the employees as well, that whatever the data we are using or taking from the employees, it should be, of course, has to kept anonymous, right? It has to be very, very, well secured, and it should be used only for the purpose it is meant for, right? I would say the principles are the same, whether it's a customer or the employee, right? Just that employees will have a lot more visibility into how the data is getting utilized, whereas the customers might be taken by surprise, but there's always a suspicion or the question in the mind of the customer, how many data could be utilized. So as I said, the more transparent, the more open we are, we upfront ask for permissions for everything, whether it's internal or external, probably that would help.
Great point on that, Saurabh. Gaurav.
So to the question of like I was saying earlier, right? AI data is pervasive, right? Kapil's question is, how do you bring trust on this, right? Remember from the previous panel, right? Sahil had asked this question, when will we get to the time where we can give power of attorney to algorithms, right? If you see today for our business, algorithms actually have that power of attorney, right? They are deciding prices, they are deciding the plans on availability, they are deciding whether it is fraud or not, right? So they are taking actually very, very significant decisions, right? And how can we trust, right? As Udaan, how do I trust, right? I think there are three aspects, right, to ensuring that AI solution, right, is working. First and foremost, right, the table stakes, all of us as technologists, right, know that, right? But first is accuracy, right? How accurate my systems are, right? So when you're training them, building them, you have the right golden data, test cases, guardrails, right? To know that it is accurate, you have to have that threshold, right, of accuracy before which it cannot be deployed out, right? I think Mohammed was talking about, right, कि generative AI he doesn't feel that confidence yet, right? It's not reached that accuracy threshold, right? So that is one, right? So one is accuracy, right? Second is whatever you do, right? AI will go wrong, right? It's an algorithm. It has a failure rate, right? It can be like 5%, it can be 0.5% or a 0.05. It will go wrong, right? So the second thing is, how do you deal with failures, right? My algorithm might mark somebody as a fraud, right? And that's a genuine Kirana guy trying to buy from Udaan, right? I should have a way to deal with that, right? Deal with these exceptions, right? Bring in humans, bring in workflows, allow them, right? On the same spirit of transparency, which Saurabh was saying, right? Alongside transparency, I want to add control, right? Let the user have more controls on this, right? And finally, I think we talked about security, right? You're taking all this data. In Udaan's case, I actually take very, very personal data, right? Businesses have to submit their bank statements, right? They have to submit their GST certificates, right? Incorporation data, right? I am figuring out, doing some risk scoring of these users, right? So I have to ensure that all the personally identifiable information is secure, cannot be seen by anybody inside the company, right? Leave outside to possible nahi hona chahiye, right? Even inside, nobody should have access to that data, right? And how do you even secure that at rest, right? When it is in databases, right, in your stores, right? How is it encrypted? So it needs to have that. So these three things I would say, right? And then a combination of that, right, will be applicable to newer things, generative AI, and once it comes in.
Thanks, Gaurav. And I've been told we need to wrap up. So Mohammed, I think we'll wrap up with your answers. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a very interesting question, purely because I think if you're there in the industry for 2 decades, I think to me it is for me it's like a deja vu, because I think in 2012-2013 period, I think the same thing happened with cloud. If anybody was there, because I can personally connect to this, because I was an architect then, part of a SaaS company, building, I was the platform architect for the cloud, right? So this question is so much, it takes me to completely deja vu format, purely because this is the first question that started off with when they said everything is moving to cloud, whether there will be trust, whether anybody will accept, SaaS as an ecosystem. Today, 10 years down the line, I don't think anybody anybody is building but SaaS, right? Even though most of the economy still works on on-premise, even today, by the way, even though there is a decent amount of SaaS revenue also that's there in the market. Nevertheless, the point what I'm trying to say is, I think when we started building with that, saying that, okay, customers were not ready to come because data is coming on the cloud. They are afraid, okay, my data gets used by another customer. So what we did as architects is, we said we will build multi-tenancy into the ecosystem. The concept of multi-tenancy was brought in. And we said, okay, now nobody can see your data because authorization and authentication already existed. Right? What was brought in was multi-tenancy. And we brought it at a very deeper layer so that employees also cannot make mistakes. Right? Once multi-tenancy was built, then they came and said, oh, okay, now data other person cannot see, but still you as an organization can see. Right? So there are some banking ecosystems which wanted data to be like nobody else can see, only I can see this data. Even not you guys also can see. Then we said, okay, let's do encryption. Let's do encryption at rest. Let's do encryption at the different layers in motion and everything, and then make sure the metadata is, everything is driven by metadata. This is how cloud evolved. Now, before that, there was no metadata concept. That's how software development changed. The way the development of software itself completely changed during this period. And that's how we did it then. We said, okay, fair enough, now we brought in this. Then government came in and then said, now everybody, the data is there in cloud, they can access, the respective company can access data. But then they started exploiting the user data. Then governments interfered and said, oh, okay, now this you cannot do. Because now the authorization of the data can be only controlled by the user who has that data. Right? That's how GDPR regulations and all these things came and everybody implemented. So I can only answer this question if I think about it by what has happened, and I think largely that's what is going to happen, right? Because whoever has built this data governance layer, I think most of us as architects and CTOs have built already in our orgs a decent level of data governance and ecosystem. Once you have this foundational data governance already built, now the next layer, whatever the AI is coming, the first thing what I would do to take control over it, whatever the data governance base layer is built, I will start building governance for just the AI output that is getting generated, and the input is anyways largely controlled with the data governance in places already. So I will start controlling the output and bring in a governance layer over there to start with, and then see how it flows. So largely I think as we keep on evolving, but the foundations needs to be there. We cannot ignore the base foundations that already has happened. If you start from scratch thinking of this is something new that is happening, then you will be all over the place. But if you start with a strong foundational structure, I think we should be there.
No, I think Mohammed, you made a good point. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, cloud was a code red. People would never leave data centers, and today government runs on cloud. And I think we're going to move in the same direction, but with plenty of checks and balances in there. Thank you so much, panel. Great insights. And if you have questions, we can cover it during the networking session. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Kapil. Just a second for a picture. And